Now, the last time we talked was ahead of Facebook's earnings. Now, we got it after the bell yesterday, and we saw that 60% jump in revenue because of that mobile ad growth that we had been talking about with these companies that investors really want to look for. What do you predict we will see with this stock? Because the last time their second quarter earnings came off, the stock ended up doubling.
Well, we saw a lot of volatility in the stock after the close when they came out with great earnings, and then we got some comments from some of the senior brass, and the stock started to sell off directly afterwards. So at least specifically for today, if you close under 58.75 down to 57, it's likely we could see at least a few points lower on the downside. I'm sorry, 47. You could see at least a few points of decline over the next couple days. The stock has had a big move in a short period of time. We've almost doubled since the second quarter earnings, so they really had to do a lot to really keep the stock going higher. The earnings growth and revenue seems to be in line, the mobile ad growth. The problem, at least with what the CFO was talking about, was that lack of demand from some of the young teenage viewers. They're not using it as much. They are getting a large amount of growth from the mobile, but only half of the revenue from the mobile. So that's going to continue to be an important area to grow for them in the future. So I don't anticipate they'll have any issues, but it's just a matter of the stock having moved a long way in a short period of time, and the market as a whole is starting to show a few signs of stalling out here over the last few days. So it could easily back up a little bit, potentially into mid-November, but that would likely be a chance to step in and buy for long-term investors.
Now, we also did get earnings reports from ExxonMobil, and their profit fell 18%. It still beat expectations, Wall Street expectations, but when you have such a big company like that, when you do see a drop, is it worrisome for investors, or do you look more at a long trend for multiple quarters to see how that is playing out?
I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, you have to look in the quarter, you need to see a long-term trend of earnings and revenue growth. You also want to see how the company guides and what they're talking about the future, any sort of innovative new products that they're coming out with, or ways they plan to fight this ongoing slowdown in the economy. And so those are all going to be important. It's important to note that we have seen a gradual deceleration in earnings really over the last couple quarters, and so this is nothing new. I think that earnings revisions have been taken down so dramatically that yes, companies are beating both revenues and earnings probably at a better rate than was expected, but yet these are coming from so drastically low levels that it doesn't really mean as much, and overall the trend is not nearly as bullish as what you might hear.
Now, we are also getting Chevron before the bell tomorrow. After getting so many oil companies reports this week, such as ExxonMobil, what do you think investors should be looking for Chevron?
Well, I haven't studied their specific fundamentals or what they should do. I know that a lot of people are looking at what the price of crude oil has done over the last few months, and we've seen a pretty definitive downtrend in crude after it peaked in late August, early September, and historically that's the trend for crude. You peak out in the fall and then you pull back into the winter months, and so a lot of these companies have hedged for that. They've taken steps. I think that big companies like that, oftentimes they're looking out a couple quarters ahead and not really concentrating on the day-to-day. So I can't speak specifically on Chevron, but I think that they're managing things just fine.